working today? Hello? Yes? Thank you very much. I will try this one today to be more free. Thank you, Gary. Yes? Yes, I couldn't help taking the chance to make some promotion for the European network. If you like the Nordic network and the exchange with colleagues in the same, who are working in the same areas you are, perhaps you would like even the European Prison Education Association. And I know that a lot of you who are participating here today are a member already in EPEA, but if you're not, you are very welcome. And the year when it's not a Nordic conference, it is always a European conference. So I take the opportunity to say very welcome to Iceland next year, in the beginning of the summer. Back to the Nordic network for education in prison. As Göran said, we are working on these recommendations, and I want to tell you a bit more about it, but they are not decided yet. So what I'm showing you is a draft. And why are we working on this? As Göran said, we have just learned that we are regarded as an expert network, and we got this question from the coordinator of the Nordic Network for Adult Learning on behalf of the Nordic Council of Ministers, if we could consider to elaborate some recommendations, Nordic recommendations on education in prison. So, of course, we thought that this was both an honorable and stimulating task, and very important as well. So, of course, we said yes. And we have had meetings, we have discussed this very much in the steering committee, and we have taught in each country, because it's important to have acceptance for the proposals in each country too. We invited Antra Karlsson, who is the coordinator for NVL, and discussed then the proposal even with her. So, and we talked to her about for whom those recommendations will be. And they will be sent back to the Nordic Council of Ministers, the ministers in Iceland, Finland, Sweden, Denmark, and Norway. And they will have a function for national policymakers, for adult educational training, and of course for the network itself, and for all of us who are working within this area. Hopefully it can be to some support and help in our work when we have some obstacles or we have to argue for education in prison. This could be some help. And what then is important? It wasn't said how many recommendations it could be, but of course it can't be how a lot of recommendations. It must be able to handle. And this is what we have as a proposal for the time being. Number one, and the most important, we think. It's the right to education for inmates, and that this right should be stated in law, somewhere, some law in each country. We have these recommendations on the European level, which the Nordic countries already have subscribed, but we know that there are discussions, even today, in different prisons. No, but they are foreign inmates. We can't afford to give them education, or it's this or that. So it would really be an important thing to have this in law. I think it is in Norway, but it's still discussed, I know. And we don't have it as a law in Sweden. And when we started this work, we found out that it's not so clear as we thought. And you know that there are several international recommendations and conventions to link to, and they all talk about education as a human right, that all inmates shall have the right to education, that no one shall be denied the right to education. So we have a lot to build on. Secondly, we have stated that research has a very important role. We need evidence for what we will do within education in prison, when we are arguing for it and when we are developing further. So both about the quality in education itself, what kind of education are we offering? Do we meet the needs of the prisoners? But also about the role of education, both for the individual and the role of education in prison. So it's not, there could be a risk of a kind of isolated activity in prison, and that's not good. So that's something to look to. And what about the role of education in prison, talking about the society perspective? And as number 3, we have found out that the qualification of the teachers is really, really important for the quality of education. So we would like a recommendation that states that education shall be provided by fully qualified teachers who has focus on pedagogy for adults. And this is not always so easy. If we come back to training for teachers, in what amount do we talk about adult pedagogy in these areas? Often we have to lean on education for younger people, and we know that there are big differences, because as an adult you have so much experience, you have skills, you have knowledges, and we have to respect that. I think it's important when we are talking of motivation for education. If the learners feel that the teachers are interested in what they already know, it will be easier for them to start studying. And this is, of course, also a matter of quality of the education. We have talked about cooperation as another key word. And then we mean both cooperation within prisons, Gabriel mentioned, between the workshops, the work leaders, and general education. And we know that many inmates have bad experience from their earlier time in school, and they really don't want to study in prison either. But they could be interested in some kind of vocational training, and that is often a very good start, a practical thing to do, where an interest for further education can arise. They realize that it's not so easy with this vocational training if I don't know how to use mathematics, for example, or if I don't know the language enough. Then they can ask and take the initiative themselves for starting education in general subjects. So that is very important. And also to see to the whole of the individual, and not only regarding education separately, but to the whole sentence plan. Because everything that is done during their sentence shall have the goal outside prison. How can we support the prisoners to a better life without crimes? And talking about that, cooperation with external parts are as important. Cooperation with the labor market agency, the different municipalities, social welfare, housing authority, and the other parts. I think we all know that the time when an inmate is leaving prison is the most difficult and risky time. It's so easy to go back to the old friends, and when you don't have any structured daily activity, it's easy to fall back in old routines and then end up in prison again. So cooperation is very important in different ways. We have talked a lot earlier about digital tools, and this is so important. The use of ICT in prison, it becomes more and more important. If we compare with education outside prison, we know that more and more material is web-based and digitalized. And we really experience these problems in Sweden now when we can't use all the materials at the internet. And we have been, our education has been inspected by the Swedish School Inspectorate, and this is one point that they are highlighting. We must have more varied learning materials and not depend so much on the books. So that is one reason. And digital tools and digital skills is also one of the 8 key competencies at European level. So it's important not only in the Nordic countries, but it has an acceptance on the European level. And of course the pedagogical reasons. And also, it is about democracy. The digital world is a part of our daily life today. If you think of how often you use the internet and where you buy tickets, where you pay your bills, etc., etc. And if a person is incarcerated for several years and cannot use the internet or computers, we will make them disabled. They won't know when they leave prison how to handle daily things in life. So this is really serious. We have to continue this development. Number 6, about validation. And that should be the starting point for the planning of the inmates' education in prison. And here we go again with the respect for the inmate and recognition of the inmates' knowledge and skills and experiences. And remember that it's the outcome of learning that counts, independently of how, when, and where the learning has taken place. And in this subject, I think it's important also that we remember that everything that the inmates are doing in prison is also about learning. It doesn't matter if they are studying or working or taking part in some kind of program. It's about learning. And if they are cooking for themselves in prison, that is also learning. If they are cleaning the floors in the wings, that is learning. And we should recognize even those outcomes and try to give them some proof of that, so they can bring it with them when they are leaving prison. Vocational training is very important. We can't only talk about general education. And I think that we all are striving for bigger provision of vocational training. And we know that inmates themselves, they often want and wish more vocational training. And it's important with cooperation again with the labor market, between the prison work and general education. It's important with diploma and certificates. Again, it has a big value for the person himself, even if the employers perhaps don't regard grades and diplomas as so important, I don't know. But it has a very big meaning for the individual, him or herself, that they got this proof of achievement, of their value. I'm worthy. I can do. And finally, talking about vocational training, we want the competencies, the outcome, to be related to this European Qualification Framework, EQF. Have you heard about it? It is a common European work to find a common definition of the different levels of competencies, which will help people to move between the European countries and to have those paper certificates that can explain the level of their personal skills and competencies. It will help them to get work when they are returning to their home country, for example. And I also know that this European Qualification Framework is every country in Europe are working to elaborate a national qualification framework. to relate to this European one. It could be a bit complicated and it's a really hard work, but it's still going strong and I believe that it will be very important. You can read more about it on the internet. And recommendation number 8, we have found out that we should also promote higher education. Most often we talk about basic education, but it is stated that the prison population is a very heterogenic group, and we have to provide different kind of education to meet the different needs. And thinking more about it, when we have education in prison, we will ourselves contribute to the need of higher education. Because when people have started to study, of course they want to continue. And somehow in the society today, the more education, the better at the labor market. And there are also prisoners who enter prison with higher education, who have to change profession because of the crime. And we can't let them start with basic education again. It's not efficient use time. Yes, we stopped with 8 recommendations at this time. And we are thinking that perhaps after some years, 5 years or something, it could be time to look through them again and update the recommendations, but we don't know so much about it yet. So what will happen now? We will continue to elaborate a document about those recommendations, and they will be sent to the Nordic Network for Adult Learning and to the Nordic Council of Ministers. And we are expecting some kind of feedback, of course, and decision. And after that, it will be time for dissemination of the Nordic recommendations. So, since you have not heard about this before, perhaps you have reflections or point of views, and you are very welcome to share them with us. And you could use this email address if you want to give us more input about this. Well, I think I will stop there, if you don't have any questions. I think the questions will arise on your way home.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Or a bit before schedule, about 10 minutes, I will prepare. I wish you from the program that we will. It's not on? Excuse me. Screen. Yes?
Yeah.
Okay, take a look to the program, and then we will see what somebody to play for us music. And for that, just now at me about in 5 minutes. So you can drive, but please be back here on the church in 5 minutes, okay? Thank you.